Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. This was yesterday's Patreon exclusive. It was a message from the Galactic Federation regarding AI and timeline reality splits and a few other things as well. There are big changes underfoot. We have to recognize the bigger picture in all this. Our reality is not even close to what the books say.
No, not at all.
But there's a lot coming out right now for us to sort and decipher. But again, the best way to do that is to develop a mind-body-breath practice. This is the key to really everything. Clean your temple, strengthen your body, and also strengthen your mind and your spiritual resolve. You know, there's been so many studies out showing the effectiveness of Tai Chi and meditation and yoga. You can see this one right here. This is from NCBI. Reiki is better than placebo and has broad potential as complementary health practice and therapy. You know, for many of you, that's no big deal. You understand this. You've had Reiki. You've had perhaps acupuncture, you've had other practices, pranic healing and Qigong, etc. All of it's working with energy. This is really the future, and this is what we have gotten from the guides. It's not necessarily the technology like med beds and things like that. It's understanding that ultimately you are consciousness, and your consciousness affects the physical reality that you experience every single day.
You know, I think there are technologies out there that are becoming helpful, but I still think the best technology is one human working on another human. You can mimic vibration and frequency, but you cannot mimic the love of source and the light that runs through another human's body, especially one who has worked so many years on clearing out their channels and just becoming that vessel and that temple of the light energy to flow through. So a lot of these Reiki healers, Mike's been at this for years and years and years, so he has a lot of energy he can push through his body and into someone else and help them heal. I think that's going to be the number one healing modality. But there are other things that can help. Like we can do a lot of things for ourselves. I just feel that human to human is the best.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, there were studies in recent times. I remember doing a video about 5 years ago, I want to say 4 years ago. And it was showing that the placebo effect is increasing over time. What does that really tell us? It simply tells us that our ability to manifest is increasing. And that's the reality. The fact is that when you look to allopathic modern day medicine, most of it is going to have similar results to the placebo effect. And in fact, I've seen numerous studies where it's not as good. And there's big reasons for that. However, certain forms of energy work, and the main thing here is who is doing it. Because it really all depends on the individual doing it and how much they've been able to work on themselves, clear out their blockages, how much they're able to focus, because so much of this is your ability to focus and to have kind of a one-track mind at times and to block off everything else that's happening. So there are tons of studies that show this. What we've learned in this time is that most of what we would call the universe, the multiverse, is really, truly not visible in the first place. But does that mean it's not there? Well, can you literally see your Wi-Fi signal? Of course not. Can you actually see the radio channel coming and being broadcast through your radio in the car? No, you can't see it, but it's obviously there. And it works. It does work. We could, now, gosh, we have so many choices when it comes to entertainment. It's mind-boggling. I remember the days of 3 channels, and they were all fuzzy. So some things have seriously improved, and our understanding of the universe has improved after being kind of waylaid by the quote-unquote science. And, again, dark matter is something that is debated by scientists. You look at ordinary matter, they're here in this chart, they're giving it 5%. In reality, even smaller than that. You may have heard of quantum entanglement. They give us the concept that there was this big bang, and all the matter that there is was at one point in time, it was one unit that was then sort of exploded out in this gigantic cosmic event, heading off through time-space at vast distances, so that it's no longer directly connected. But at one time, there was a connection, and thus we have, quantum entanglement, where once you have a connection, there always is a connection. The reality is, all that you see is really all about consciousness exploring itself. And in reality, things are very entangled. And it is a holographic universe. That is true. So, Alice and Bob here, entangled particles. Yes, absolutely. Anytime we've had any sort of contact with anybody else, it's generally easier to tap into them again. People that are very close have this quote-unquote psychic connection. That's kind of a given. We've actually, again, there's been studies done on twins, that have shown amazing connections. But it's not just twins, and it's not just partners and best friends. It's really anybody out there that once we focus in on, everybody has their own particular little frequency, and we could connect to that. When we're working on our regular clients, for instance, it's so easy to connect to them. One of the freakiest things, though, is like first-time people, because often, and I would even say it's more than half the time, when people go and make an appointment for the first time, often they start to be worked on earlier before the appointment. Like the appointment might be 2, 3, 4 weeks out, and yet, it just happens all the time that they'll start to feel that they're being worked on energetically before the appointment. And that's because they are. They as soon as they make the intent to have a session, it's like our guides and their guides have come into an agreement, and the work already starts.
Right. And they start to formulate a plan. And it does take for that intention to come into the 3D to have it fulfill itself. But intention is so very important. And once someone decides, okay, I want to heal, then that's when the energy starts moving. And then on the appointment, that's when the focus comes into play, and that's when the details come into play. That's when the processing comes into play. So there's really a lot to it, and I think it's so fascinating that you don't have to have someone right in front of you to do this. You can do it distant.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, there's different ways of handling things in person and distance, but you can do and be very effective with energy work across vast distances. Again, we were hit before and hacked on our website, and we are thankful that Ellie put it back together, as I was not getting it together in a good manner. And so, we had so many of our references and people that have had work done that were removed. Thankfully, we had some of those still hidden away. And here you go. These are some people that we've worked on from different places. We worked on people energetically. I like to bring up everywhere, every single continent except for Antarctica. Nobody from Antarctica yet. But yes, we worked on people in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in Australia, in New Zealand, you name it. And many of them, actually, I'd probably say definitely more than half feel the energy. It really depends on the person and where they're at. If you've been clear, if you've been taking care of yourself and your diet, and you're not laden with a lot of big FARMA, and say you do a mind body breath practice, well, then, you probably will feel it. If on the other hand, you haven't taken as good a care of the body and still been drinking fluoridated water and, are always bathed in EMFs, then you might not feel it right away. But that could always be developed too. One of my regulars from, over a decade ago, couldn't feel it when I first worked on them, but then eventually could feel it. And not only that, went through training with me and became a Reiki master teacher themselves. And now, they're an energy worker themselves of a very high degree. Again, you can develop these abilities. Quantum entanglement, very, very real. We are all connected is the reality. Time-space is, again, a construct in more ways than one that can be manipulated. We've gotten some really good info from the guides on this, and reality really is, it's so much more pliable than what most people would think. Yeah, we can connect to other people instantaneously. The key is going within. It's not technology that's going to truly, quote unquote, save us. And this is where, I do think there's technologies they can release that can help us. But I think also, again, it's been said that it's not really the healer, because a good healer is simply a conduit. It's somebody that is able to almost take themselves out of their typical mind space to the point where they become a channel, like Cindy is, for healing energies. And that's really, really what's going on, because the healing happens in the higher self and then makes its way down into the physical body. Quantum entanglement, non-locality, challenging local realism of classical physics. Yeah, absolutely. This is what we are looking at in AI computers and also quantum computing. This is now. And also what it's all pointing to is that we ourselves are way more powerful than most people think. Again, you only see a tiny little portion of the visible light spectrum is so small compared to what is. And that doesn't mean that the rest of it isn't there. No, it obviously is there. You are a walking energy field, and you can't necessarily see all the different layers, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. When we say multidimensional beings, we are multidimensional beings. Absolutely. Here you can see the chakras right here. These are whirling vortices that are always pulling in subatomic energy into our body. They are also gateways. It's said that each one of the chakras is a dimensional portal. It's a wormhole to another dimension. Absolutely. This is our reality. When these chakras get blocked, they limit the ability of our consciousness to pull information from other fields. Again, we're like those Russian dolls. When the physical body is gone, consciousness just shifts to another level. The reality is you are much, much bigger than you think. You're much more powerful than you think. And it's just getting used to moving between the realms. And you can do that. And you can also train yourself to be much better at that, shifting your consciousness, shifting your perspective. And when we accept the energy coming in and come into alignment with a higher self, miracles can happen. I would generally say that if there is a healing crisis that's going on and has not been resolved, there is something we are missing from the higher self typically. It could be other things too. It could be paying off karma, because karma, again, is the currency of the universe. It truly, truly is. And when we sometimes have a karmic debt, not necessarily even from this life, it has to be paid for in some way, shape, or form. I can think of nothing better than helping others to pay off karmic debt.
So, one of the problems that people run into when they come in for healing is that we can get them feeling much better. We can get the pain under control. We can help things move into alignment. But sometimes, if people are not able to either find or give up those things that made them sick, it will come back to visit. It'll come back to say, hey, we need to resolve this. This is why you're on this healing path. And it's very much a conversation with higher self. And when people move into alignment, that conversation with higher self becomes very important. It's almost like higher self comes knocking and says, no, we had an agreement. You are going to heal. And these are the things that are continuing to make you sick. So sometimes those things are obvious. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're actually in the family lineage and they're not super obvious. So that's actually where I got into tuning forks, because of my own family lineage and family trauma. So, when I'm working on someone, this is what my table looks like. I have a lot of forks, and I use those depending on what calling I have. Sometimes it's about recalibrating a certain organ. Usually the liver is a very popular one to say, hey, come up and work on me. And what I do is I use those forks very much like sonar. So this is how I see. And it is exactly like having someone on my table. So I'll pick up a fork. Liver is always a good example. And I will put it over the liver, and I start to hear things. I start to get information. I start to get streams of information. I start to get pictures. And it's really interesting, because sometimes family members will come in during a session, and I start to get visions of family members. I start to get visions of guides. I start to get information. So here we are going for a biofield tuning, but the whole family comes, the whole ancestral family comes to visit. There's a lot that goes to it. So I've worked on a lot of people, so I've had a lot of time to fine tune the energy field and realize how. Now, sometimes people, when I work on their energy field, there might be certain organs that are not ready to come into full alignment. So we just do light work on that, because you don't want to be too drastic. And then people end up having these really profound energy healings, and it's really beautiful. And a lot of times we pull in the chart, and I could never do this without Mike's backing, because his energy and his ability to push energy and to heal really plays a huge part in this. So when it comes to us, we're very much a team. The masculine, the feminine coming together. It's a very balanced approach. So, for example, when I work on the throat chakra, to the right of somebody's throat chakra, there is a little pocket of, let's say, energy that tends to get clogged. And this can bring up thyroid issues. And if what that clogging is, it's those things that you probably should have said, but you didn't. So it stays close to the energy field, not very far away, about 10 inches. And you take a tuning fork and I comb through that energy. And because I have assistance with Mike, he's very helpful in making sure that that energy gets combed through thoroughly, and it releases and diffuses the blockage in that throat chakra or thyroid. So if you could imagine running water, and let's say there's a filter on that running water and it gets clogged up with debris. That debris are those thoughts and emotions that get stuck that we didn't say or do. So I release that, and this allows for the water to run freely. At the same time, when you go back to your normal life, you will find it more difficult to not say the things that you need to say. So there's some processing that probably needs to get done. And another thing that we do on a tuning is we set the intention and understanding for manifestation, because this is like rapid manifestation. You can do a tuning and you can have what you want to see in your mind's eye. And this is like speaking to higher self. So this is how we do a lot of things. And there's also this membrane. It's about 6 feet away from the body. It's a double layer membrane of just energy. And sometimes those get tears, those get blocks, and you can have leaking light. And I take another tuning fork and I go through each chakra and I pull that light back into your energy field. And then we strengthen it through shamanic means. Every way can be a little bit different, the way we strengthen the energy field. But after we pull the light in, we do strengthen the energy field. And then there's before and after instructions for each session. So we would tell someone before they come in, drink plenty of water before your session, and just be prepared. A lot of times after a session, I'll get the message to remind someone, and this might sound a little weird, but you might want to not immerse yourself in water for a day or two. Spit baths are okay, but just allow that energy field, and after we strengthen it, to hold, allow everything to settle in, allow things to move into alignment. And that's a basic energy session. One of my favorite things is when we pull in a chart, because then people can see some weaknesses and they can see some strengths, and we can see, oh, okay, well, this is where this planet is, and you might want to address things from this direction instead of that direction. So a lot goes into it, and we've developed this over, I don't know, so many people. You can see the crown chakra there. This is where I connect people to their sun star. So that's one of the first things we do on a session, is we ground and we connect. So a lot goes into it.
Yeah, higher self. Again, it's connection to the higher self. If you were to see your higher self, ultimately, what do you look like? You look like the sun. Because, again, as above, so below, as within, so without.
You do. That's been my experience. That's what I've seen Source as. It's the sun. It's an energy. And then we take on these bodily forms. And in these bodily forms, inside of that double membrane is actually the human mind. So you would think of the mind is in the head. But no, the human mind encompasses the whole human body. So when I'm going through someone's energy field, I hit little waves of energy. I hit little eddies. I hit sometimes walls of energy that just really, they're saying, okay, I will budge, but I don't really want to. And you can feel that and you can hear that. So I can go into somebody's energy field and I can talk to them about when they were 8 years old and this trauma that happened when they were 8 years old. And then we work through it, and we work through that energy and comb the energy through. So they are able to come to some type of understanding about this trauma. And sometimes the epiphanies don't come right away. Sometimes they come a week after a healing, 2 weeks after a healing. And then other times we are working on the family lineage. So that would be down the center of the left and the right of the person. So we go through the mother and the father, sometimes the grandmother, grandfather, and we work through those energies. Now, I always tell people, when it comes to family lineage healing, you don't want to worry about what happened to grandma or grandpa. You worry about what's going on in your life, because you're probably repeating that pattern. So whatever you're facing, at some point they faced. And those are the things that we are moving into alignment. Those are the energies that we are working through. And this is really finding the core of the problem, because all of our problems, all of our aches, pains, everything, it starts on the outside of the body. It doesn't start with the body. So if you have something go wrong with your ankle or your knee, well, this could be a fear of, not knowing what's coming. Or it could be a fear of, oh, this happened in the past, I don't want to go forward. So a lot of energy gets stuck in the feet. A lot of energy gets lost through the knees. So when I'm going through each chakra, I'm calling all of that light that's lingering outside the body and it's disoriented. I'm calling that back into your chakras. And the chakras are wonderful because they know where that light needs to go. So overall, when someone is done with the energy work, they feel much lighter. They feel better. They feel happier. They have a sense of everything is going to be okay. And that's because their light is literally back in their body.
Yeah, again, allopathic medicine chases after symptoms being relieved, and that's really what it does. It just chases symptoms as opposed to getting to what's the root cause, which, generally speaking, unless you're talking about some sort of poisoning or, an accident, things like that, impacts. It's emotional, and traditional Chinese medicine understands that typical disease is disease, which is usually unresolved emotions, unprocessed trauma. And so much of the time it does come back to childhood. It's fascinating to watch Cindy work. This is, a life-size 6-foot basic, representation of a human on our actual massage table. So, this is part of what we do. And, Cindy will be like sometimes 36, 48 inches away and find something that's in the person's energy field, even though they're over in the UK or Spain or Ireland, or they're over in somewhere in Central Europe or in Asia or New Zealand or Australia. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Again, ultimately, everything is consciousness. There is nothing more real than consciousness. Consciousness is more real than anything physical that you see, because it is that which never goes away.
And also, when I'm working on someone's energy field, I get numbers pop out at me, and those numbers are indicating age. So I will ask, okay, did something happen at this age? And no one ever has to tell me anything. You can just say yes and be silent, and we can still work through that trauma. That's why I like the tuning forks, because my own trauma, I don't know what a lot of it is, but I do like to continue to align myself, so I continue to find whatever healing I need to move to a higher level, to be able to push more energy and help more people. So it is a process. It's something that I find fascinating, and the first time I heard about it, I knew, wow, this is like an energy that can really help heal people, because it helps them find out what's wrong. So when we're looking in an energy field, and that plasma membrane, a lot of times there's things stuck in it, there's energy could be shooting out. Mostly I see energy at the feet. That's what we work on a lot, is releasing that energy in the foot. The right foot is where we're going, the left foot is where we have been, and both feet, as much as they can help us move forward, they can both stick us, because where we have been, sometimes there's traumas there and you're afraid to go forward. And then where we are going, sometimes we're unsure of ourselves, so we don't want to take those steps. So after you relieve that pressure and relieve that energy out of the feet, then people have epiphanies and saying, oh, okay, well, that's why I was afraid to go this direction. Well, let's resolve that. And they resolve it and they move forward. So when it comes to weak energy fields, that's the last thing we do on a tuning, is we strengthen that energy field before someone goes, so they're good and strong for a while. But then it's up to the person. They have to listen to the signals and listen to higher self and make that effort. So whatever the things were that made you sick, those are the things that need to be given up. Those are the things that need some type of resolution and to help you heal, because, well, you deserve it. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel happy. You deserve to be living your best life. And sometimes that means we all go through a little bit of healing, and we all have to figure some things out for our life's journey. And that's what allows us to connect to even other people.
Absolutely. So, there's quite a bit to it. And, again, it depends on the individual, because, each one of us is a unique individual, and, there's a resonance that we're giving off. And so, sometimes it's good to have other healers work on you again, because ultimately you're your own healer. It's basically reconnecting with your higher self to a higher degree, getting on the path that the higher self had set out for this particular life. Because, again, often if we are not on that path, then we start to run into issues. And I recognize this personally. Really, when I was in my 30s, is when this realization really hit me, because I had developed typical goals and was feeling very disconcerted because, I had hit a couple of goals in a worldly manner, like buying my own house, early 20s, and thinking I was going to be fulfilled because my parents never had their own house, and then finding I wasn't fulfilled. Well, then, that led me back into the spiritual thing again that was always with me since a little kid. I was a weird 5 to 8 year old meditating in my closet in the dark.
Sometimes we have those urges, and what is that? What are we doing? We're reading something in our past, and it could be way in the past. So we're following that DNA, and DNA is a very funny thing, because when it gets damaged, well, we can follow that too. Unbeknownst to us, it's damaged and it's taking us in a wrong direction. And that's why I think it's good to bring that energy field and that DNA and repattern that to its blueprint. So we are following our DNA and becoming, the fullest, healthiest being that we possibly can. A lot of people, they investing in yourself is what really brings about the healing. It's that talking to higher self, saying, okay, I'm ready to love me, just give me some guidance here. And this brings in a ton of guidance. You just have to be willing, and you have to ask. Those two things.
Absolutely. So, again, things like Reiki, Qigong-Pranic healing, and the different forms of energy work, they could be absolutely extremely effective. It really depends on the individual, because again, each one of us is unique, and we have our own gifts. And I've had others work on me, and I've worked on probably hundreds of energy healers over the course of the years and decades. And each one of us is a unique signature. You could think of each one of us having our own unique frequencies. So, it's a matter of entrainment, again, which is something that, Cindy's nodding.
Yeah, entrainment. That's really fun, because you entrain to the highest vibration in the room. So when you come in and you work on us, your energy is going to entrain to mine and Mike's energy. It's going to move up, and this is where it's so important to eat the good foods, to clear out the channels, to do the mantras, to do the meditations, to be that highest light available for you to find healing. That's very important, and that's where you start to show, hey, you start to have that conversation. I care about me. And as soon as you show higher self that you care about the vessel that you came here in, and you're ready to make changes, then that's when the healing really starts, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though you can't necessarily see something, doesn't mean it's not there.
Oh my gosh, the thoughts, they're definitely there, and they're going all over the place. And that's where, it becomes important to kind of guard our thoughts and make sure we're not going down roads that are not going to hurt us. I don't believe in spiritual bypassing, but at the same time, if you're going down a really bad path and you're doing nothing but spiraling, then it's time to start to baby step your way out of it and find things that are just a little bit better than what they were before, and just sort of talk your way back up and out of it, because to stay down there, that can create problems with the energy field too, and it can make you sick. But think about this: if you can make yourself sick through thoughts, you can make yourself well through thoughts. So it's about training that brain and training those thought patterns. And it's like making a trail through the forest. So every time you have a good thought, like I love myself, I invest in myself, I believe in myself, then those thoughts become easier, and your cells can hear it. So there's this energy field that's constantly listening. It's always listening for instruction. It doesn't really have an opinion. It's just listening for instruction. So if you're thinking the bad things, it's going to listen to that. And that's why it makes it so important for you to have the better thoughts, to have the more positive thoughts, because that energy field is not it's not a reasoning field. It's just listening. It's kind of mechanical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you noticed all the tuning forks there on the table, each one of them is to a different frequency.
Yeah.
So basically, there's a tuning fork for every organ and every major system. So yeah, very, very cool, very intricate, and that is, I believe, absolutely the big healing wave of the future, because we are changing. We're stepping into our power, and we're realizing that we already have everything we need.
And, we've worked on a lot of people, and I think it's time that we do start developing our own practice. We do not like the dogma, but there is an integrity that comes along with doing this type of work. And there are boundaries, and there are things that people should and should not do. And I think we are going to develop a type of a course, and we're just now thinking about that. We're in the baby steps process of it, but we've worked on, oh gosh, countless hundreds of people, and enough to map my own biofield and have me understand what's going on in there. And it's time to start helping and teaching others, I think.
Yes, absolutely. As always, guys, we invite you to join us on Patreon for exclusives, and you could reach out to us at evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@hushmail.com. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.